Fellow Ambazonians, good afternoon. Today is Monday, June the 2nd, 2025. Human rights groups or accomplices. The question is human rights groups or accomplices. Fellow Ambazonians, it is common knowledge to our citizens on the ground of the various torture and murder centers or chambers that exist across Ambazonia, where our people are often snatched from the streets, whisked to these centers. They are tortured, they are humiliated, they are extorted, and sometimes they are killed, and their bodies sometimes dumped in rivers, and they are fished out by relatives like dead fish. These are things that are common knowledge to the average southern Cameroonian Ambazonian on the street. It has been brought to our attention that yet again, the National Cooperative Center in Bali, which is near the Bali Park, is being used or has been used for quite some time now by La République Cameroon military as a torture chamber. Not just a torture chamber, we have been told of several instances where young girls have been snatched from the street, taken to this cooperative college near the Bali Park, and sexually molested. These incidents have been reported severally. Other places that such incidents occur are the Bafut Airport, where it is common knowledge that people are snatched from the streets for no crime committed, taken to these places, tortured, killed, and their bodies later found in the streams around the area. There is also a place in Boya, I forget the exact location. There's another place in Boya where the same behavior or the same criminal activity occurs, and all of these places are controlled by La République military or the so-called criminal gendarmes. And this is not all. If you look carefully, every gendarme and police post located within the southern Cameroons and now their military posts are places where these incidents occur on a regular basis. Many times, people are simply rounded up en masse, taken to these centers, some tortured, some extorted, and people often have to pay huge sums in order, and those are the lucky ones, first of all. They have to pay huge sums in order to secure their freedom. These things are done under the noses of their colonial bosses, the DOs, and the governors. They know exactly what happens in these places. And the strange thing is that nobody is ever held accountable for these crimes. Not even after the Ngabu massacre, which caught the attention of even the international media, and which La République du Cameroon previously refused that they were not involved. They refused that they were not involved, but when the evidence was released, which was indisputable, they reluctantly admitted and lied that the culprits have been apprehended and will face justice. But till this day, we know nothing about any punishment that was ever meted out to those that took part in that massacre. No, some of the things that happen in these places include the physical, mental, and emotional torture of victims. You see? And the strange thing is that I would say 100% of the time, the victims are always of Southern Cameroons or Ambazonian nationality. They are always Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians. You have never heard of any La République du Cameroon citizen suffering from any of these incidents of torture, of murder, of extortion. Southern Cameroon's citizens are the primary targets for these acts of human rights abuses. Other incidents of human rights abuses include, of course, the sexual abuse of girls, which I mentioned earlier. Extortion, mostly of financial extortion. Murders and killings, as I mentioned earlier, where the victims' bodies are either dumped in rivers or sometimes left on street corners. If this is not genocide, it is at least apartheid as we know it. When a specific demographic is targeted for a certain treatment, that can be nothing short of either genocide or apartheid. And that is what our people have experienced ever since coming into cohabitation with La République du Cameroon, especially, and this especially increased at the start of this conflict between La République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons. Now, these things are well documented. It is common knowledge. The so-called human rights organizations operating within the Southern Cameroons know of these things. But till this day, we are yet to know of any penalty or sanction whatsoever that has ever been brought to bear on La République or any of their officials for any of these acts of criminality and human rights abuses that I've mentioned here. We have even had situations where little girls who are just on their way to school are shot in the head and killed, and nobody is held to account. So my question, or the so-called human rights organizations operating within the Southern Cameroons will have to answer a few questions. I think they deserve to answer a few questions. And the first of it is this: what are your responsibilities in La République du Cameroon, and by extension, the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia? What are you there for? What are your responsibilities? Do you visit known torture sites like those I have mentioned in Bali, the Bafut Airport, all of the gendarme posts? Do you visit the prisons where our civilians are snatched and locked up under deplorable conditions? Do you take any time to interview these prisoners to find out about their living conditions? How often do you do that? How often do you do this? Do you collect any reports? If so, where do you send them? What do you do with the reports that you make of these incidents, if at all you make these reports? When are your reports generated? And what do you do with them is a question. When you generate these reports, what do you do with them? How often do you send out these reports, and to who? How often do you send them out, and who receives them? What is the content of these reports? E.g., what kinds of human rights abuses or violations do you document or report on? Do you report on the extortions? Do you report on torture? Do you report on the arson on our physical infrastructure like hospitals and schools? Do you report on the murders and massacres? Do you report on these disappearances, which always have the fingerprints of La République du Cameroon operatives? Do you report on these mass killings of our people? What measures or sanctions are ever brought to bear on violators? These are questions that so-called human rights organizations should be answering. Now, if your reporting has no effect at all on changing the behavior of the perpetrators, why then are you there? Why then are you there if all of your reporting for all this time has not convinced La République du Cameroon to change its ways? And these incidents have continued and are continuing even as we speak. These things are going on right now as we speak. What then is your role? What is your importance within the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia when these things are continuing to occur? What is the importance of your presence if you cannot serve as a deterrence to the perpetrators of these crimes? Are you just there for your paycheck from both sides, where you take your paycheck from your organization and then turn around and get paid by La République, or should I say get bribed by La République du Cameroon to stay silent? Is that why you are there? Just to make money off of our plight? Is that your main focus for being in the Southern Cameroons? Or if you are there for a purpose, tell us what that purpose is. What is the importance of your presence in the Southern Cameroons when these incidents of human rights violations are continuing to be perpetrated with impunity under your very nose? Why are you there? That is a big question. What are you doing in the Southern Cameroons when your presence hasn't helped to ameliorate the living conditions of our people or stopped the perpetrators from causing harm to our population? Is that why you are there, just to make your money? Or are you there to protect our people, or are you enablers? Human rights organizations, no matter which one you are, I have not seen any seriousness on your part. I have not seen weekly reports, monthly reports, quarterly reports stating exactly the details of what La République is doing to the people of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. Why then are you there? Is the question. I have a parable for these so-called human rights organizations, and I want Ambazonians to listen. Let's assume that you are supposed to be a police officer, and it is your job to prevent crime. Therefore, the criminal is supposed to fear you when they see you. But then, it is very strange that people see you whining and dining with the criminal. If you are supposed to be a police officer, but people see you whining and dining with the criminal, What then is your role? Are you a criminal or are you a police officer? I am therefore calling on these so-called human rights organizations operating within the southern Cameroons. If you are really there to protect the human rights of the people of the southern Cameroons and Ambazonia, then we need to see you doing exactly that. Visit the prisons, talk to the prisoners, find out their living conditions, visit these detention centers, these torture centers, these centers of mass murder. Talk to the inmates in there and find out their conditions. Talk to the civilians in the vicinity and find out what's going on in these places. It is easy to do it. If you are incapable of doing this, then your presence in the southern Cameroons is redundant, and you should better remove yourselves. Let us know that we have no protection than to give us the false impression that we have someone watching out for us, when indeed we are all by ourselves. When indeed you are instead enabling the enemy to continue torturing us and humiliating us and killing us, and you are giving them cover or the pretense of someone watching, when indeed there's no one watching. That is my message to the so-called human rights organizations. Do your job or get out. Thank you.